Well, another season of Game of Thrones has come and gone, and now begins the long wait for Season 6. And unless George R. R. Martin somehow manages to finish The Winds of Winter before that time, well, Season 6 is going to end up surpassing the books. But you know what? Forget about Season 6. Season 5 already started to surpass the books in many ways. And it even brought in some things that were never even in the books to begin with. And as a book reader who has read all the books that have been released to this day, I loved every minute of it. And yes, even though I am a book reader and I've read all the books, well, that have been released, I'm not one of those mindless, drooling book purists who throws a fit every time the show doesn't follow the books to the letter, which is a completely insane notion considering the last two books. One of the biggest mistakes George R. R. Martin has ever made in his last two books, A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, is that he dragged his feet on a level that you wouldn't believe. I mean, I heard a lot of people saying that this season of the show was too slow. Well, guys, trust me. As someone who has read the books, I can tell you that A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons had such a slow pace that the show could only aspire to. And I mean, as a TV show, it of course doesn't have all the time in the world trying to fuck around getting every single tiny little detail of Martin's bloated books on screen. But I think they managed to adapt Feast and Dance quite well, even though cutting out so much material. But then again, that was material that should have been cut from the books themselves. It was a smart decision to either trim the fat from Dance and Feast, or simply give unnecessary character storylines to characters we already know and give a fuck about. Having these things and circumstances happen to characters we're already invested in is a major improvement over Feast and Dance. And Season 5 also brought in some storylines that never happened in the books, and it also speeded up some storylines that were really dragged out in Feast and Dance. Namely, the Hardhome sequence in Episode 8, which was easily one of the best things in the show's entire run. And the episode was one of the best in the entire series. And not just because of this scene, I might add. I mean, this scene tops Blackwater and Watchers on the Wall. It's almost movie quality, and it finally brought the White Walkers center stage. Not only do we finally see what threat the White Walkers posed, Tyrion and Daenerys finally meet, and it's every bit as glorious as I thought it'd be. This is something that will eventually happen in the books. But by the way good old George drags his feet, I expect this to happen in, say, the middle of Book 7 or the possible Book 8. Expect those in 2030, or not at all. I mean, the Northern storyline in A Dance with Dragons is probably my favorite storyline in the entire run of the book series. And although much of it is cut in the show, it's still my favorite storyline. And with additions like the Hardhome sequence, I'd even say, in some ways, it's improved. Though some whiny bitch book purists and Stannis fanboys might disagree with me. But fuck 'em. I think one of the biggest triggers for mindless, drooling book purists this season was putting Sansa in Winterfell and marrying Ramsay Snow. In the books, this happens to, yet again, some minor character we haven't even seen since the first book. And even then we didn't see her much. Putting Sansa in Winterfell with Ramsay was a great decision as far as I'm concerned. Sure, it was kind of, the Joffrey King's Landing situation again, only 1,000 times worse. But this time, Sansa isn't just sitting around taking everybody's shit. She's taking initiative. She's not having everyone's shit despite being in a terrible situation. She's changed a lot, and this storyline really shows that. And besides, it happened to a character we actually give a fuck about. And it made Theon's redemption much more meaningful with Sansa there. Speaking of which, Sophie Turner and Alfie Allen just knock it out of the park with their performances this season. And that alone made this storyline worth it. And aside from them, Kit Harington, who, I always thought Kit Harington was great. A lot of people say he wasn't too good in earlier seasons, but I don't get it. I always thought he was great, even from the beginning. But this season, he killed it. And hell, even Emilia Clarke, who I usually harp on for her performance, even she did pretty good this season. Actually, no, she did great this season. Or at least it was a fuck of a lot better than her season 4 performance. Peter Dinklage still kicks ass. And Stephen Dillon, who plays Stannis, and the rest of the Dragonstone cast also did, amazing this season. I was really rooting for Stannis this season, despite a certain scene. And I will agree with some people that this wasn't the most eventful season. But then again, they weren't based on the most eventful books in the series either. And I still like those books, and I still loved this season. So even though it's not that eventful, it was still a fantastic season as far as I'm concerned. The North and Meereen were easily the best storylines this year. King's Landing was superb as always, if only because we finally got to see Cersei get her oh-so-sweet comeuppance. And actually, if there was one problem I had with this season, it's, the Dorne storyline. A lot of people say that it was abysmal, it was terrible. I wouldn't go that far. It wasn't the greatest, but it wasn't that bad, was it? But it at least benefited from having Jaime and Bronn in it, two characters that we're already invested in. Although the other characters that were introduced in Dorne grew on me the more it went on. And actually, Alexander Siddig and whoever plays... what's his name? Oh yeah, Areo Hotah. They were actually pretty great even from the beginning. So in this Game of Thrones fans' opinion, another fantastic season as always, despite one rocky storyline here and there. And also, in my humble opinion, a big improvement over the books it's based on. If you agree or disagree with this video, be sure to discuss in the comments section, and if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also be sure to check out my blog at The Critical Canucks at blogspot.ca, and also be sure to follow us on Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook, all that jazz. Links to all those are in the description below. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll be seeing you next time. Peace out, everybody.